Live. What's up, everyone? I am actually a little bit later. Usually I try to get on between 6:30 and 7, but I'm realizing that that's not really a good time to transition from being off from work, spending time with my kids, making sure they eat, and getting back in the game. And doing this. So, hello. I wanted to really quickly, and I don't really want to talk about George Floyd a whole lot, but I want to just sort of share some observations. And, hopefully, this is, and again, when I share my perspective on my channel, this is my own personal opinion. You don't have to agree with it, okay? You can have your own opinions about whatever you want to have. And no, me creating a video isn't soliciting you to get into your feelings and feel compelled to say something ignorant in response to my opinion. So with that being said, I posted yesterday about the George Floyd mural being struck by lightning. I thought it was actually kind of ironic. And, there's a little, to me, it's sort of, an omen, kind of to that, it was just interesting to me. And, I kind of laughed at it a little bit, not at George Floyd, but at the fact that, some Black Americans continue to buy into beacons and symbols, and they profess themselves to be Christians, and yet they are, in my opinion, when you are thrown symbols, not policies, but symbols, days of struggle, to me, that is a form of reminding you, of your place in society. And like I said, nowhere in my commentary of George Floyd since that situation happened did I vilify the man. I am not privy, and we are all still not privy to all of the circumstances surrounding that situation. We only know what we know based off of what all these people and legal heads, and scholars, are telling us. And, it still could come with a form of manipulation to get us to buy into certain types of rhetoric or understanding about that situation. So I'm going to just tell my opinion about George Floyd. Like, I saw exactly what I needed to see, right? I saw a police lynching. I saw Eric Garner, I Can't Breathe. I saw Colin Kaepernick kneel against police brutality. And I saw all that play out to me as a calculated hate crime. George Floyd, of all the hate crimes that I've seen, that one was seemingly the most calculated to me. And to me, Nancy Pelosi, she co-signed my beliefs when she called the man a sacrifice. And Neo, the singer, also called him a sacrifice at his funeral. So with that, turning George Floyd, into a beacon, a martyr, a symbol for Black people, there's no justice behind it. You know what I mean? If anything, these people are putting these murals and these statues before Black people so that we can constantly be reminded, not remembering George Floyd because he was not a civil rights leader. You know what I mean? He wasn't a beacon for the Black struggle. He was a normal, imperfect human being in the poverty line that made terrible decisions in his life. And that would and because of his background, he is the last person Black people should be symbolizing, let alone glorifying in any way. He is not a representation of anything for Black people but the cyclical, I would say, occurrences of police brutality that are completely politicized to keep Black people in a marginalized state of mind or thinking. Okay, so with that, I posted my opinions. I thought it was ironic that George Floyd, the Ohio mural was struck by lightning. And, when you look at the lightning strike, from a structural standpoint, it's interesting because it only hit the mural, which is crazy. What's up, Marshall? I'm talking about the discussion from LinkedIn today. So when I posted that, and you might have saw that post yesterday, excuse me. when I posted that yesterday, I got all these comments. He was a criminal. He was this. He put a gun to a pregnant woman's belly, and all these different things. And it's like, I understand that he did those things, and I understand that he was a criminal, but I'm trying to understand why you people are bringing that up and the man is dead, right? Just because the Democrats and the liberals and all the passionately ignorant people who want to make him a symbol and a beacon to black people and create this narrative around what the meaning of his death should be to black people, number one, it doesn't mean that everybody's buying into that. And number two, that doesn't mean that that man somehow willed this to be his legacy. Even if he bought into that being his legacy, I don't know what the circumstances are. He could have been a normal situation that went bad. I don't know. But the bottom line is somebody else is creating these narratives. Somebody else is pushing these ideas. I don't even see George Floyd's family pushing out these narratives like the individuals who have a political interest in these narratives being perpetuated are. So, I kind of step back, and like I said, I like to be in the middle, because when it comes to conservatism, I truly do believe it to be a set of values. And part of those conservative values is the belief in God. And I hear a lot of conservatives, when they talk about the conditions of America, they're like, we need more God in the union, and we need to put God back in the school, and we need to do God, and people need God. And I'm like, I agree. But then when I step back and listen to some of these people's conversations about certain things, number one, I have kind of come to see, even on the conservative side, they talk about how liberals are all in their feelings and this, but you see that on the conservative side too. You see irrational thinking on the conservative side. You see people who cannot provide an opinion or a perspective with objective. And so today I posted, now this is my own opinion. I posted this about George Floyd because I'm tired of hearing people vilify a man that is dead. Okay? That man is dead. He has no control over the narrative or how his story, life or death, is being projected. And I think it's ignorant for so many different conservatives to think, oh, well, Candace Owens and all these mainstream black conservatives talk crap about this dead criminal, so we should talk crap about this dead criminal. All right, so this is what I said to my people on LinkedIn. I said, I don't subscribe to vilifying the dead, especially a man who has been exploited for political gain. Whatever George Floyd did in his life when he was living is for him to answer to God, and his judgment will be with the Lord all the same. I think Candace Owens has really conditioned some people into removing themselves from even godly sensibilities when it comes to looking at their fellow man. The Democrats exploited a man that was unjustly killed. Whatever he did to lead him up to that moment is very irrelevant because we all choose the path that we choose. At the end of the day, God will judge us by our works and also how we view other people. George Floyd was an imperfect man who made bad choices in his life, and he is no longer with us. I laugh at the mockery of the Democrats, but I do not vilify the dead. That's what gang members do in their music. George Floyd is not a martyr, nor is he a beacon for civil rights for black people. But he's also not a living man that has control over the narratives that are projected around his life and death. Please don't confuse my previous post as being a mockery of George Floyd. I'm only teaching lessons to those who have a skewed idea around idolizing and immortalizing the man and professing themselves to be Christians. This is a conscious black conservative perspective. Derive what you will. And I said that because I am tired of people believing that everybody, especially on the black conservative side, views the situation of George Floyd the same way. Some of us can look at that situation objectively without pandering to the ignorance of other people and minimizing somebody who is no longer with us to just another dead criminal. Because here's the thing, George Floyd was not in jail when that situation happened. He was a free man. So whatever criminal charges or anything that he had faced, apparently he had reconciled those things because that was not what they were there for. So for people to constantly keep sending me George Floyd's arrest record and his criminal background, what I'm trying to understand is, what are you trying to prove about a dead man? Because we all know that George Floyd is not a martyr. We already know he's not a beacon for civil rights. We know this. So why is it relevant for someone to say, yeah, he was a criminal, he was a this, he was a that, he was that? Okay, so basically what I'm hearing from some of you conservatives is that it's just another dead black nigga that was a criminal drug addict. What's the big deal? I mean, some of you guys in your rhetoric, that is basically what I'm concluding. That is just another dead nigga. And he had all this criminal stuff going on. So regardless if he even had a case at that moment, he was a free man. It doesn't matter. He did bad things in his past, so therefore he deserves to die in that manner. And we should not be feeling bad, for that situation. And that, some of these conservatives, to me, are painting it like the man deserved to die because he made grave errors. There's a lot of people in this country right now who have not been exploited to the degree that George Floyd has. And they, to me, would be more worthy of death than maybe George Floyd, who might have had a drug problem. The reason why we point out George Floyd's criminal past is because some people keep trying to lionize him or even whitewash his history. I understand that may be your disposition, but at the end of the day, George Floyd is a dead man, okay? And regardless of what somebody else is doing and lying and projecting this thing, it's like, my thing is, I don't feel compelled to have to rebut somebody's argument about George Floyd being a martyr to the black community by pointing out his criminal history. What I do is I say George Floyd is not a martyr of the black community, and he's not a beacon for civil rights. George Floyd is a black exploit. That's what he is. I don't have to go to defaming this man to talk about how his situation is black exploitation. That is the topic of George Floyd to me. He's not a martyr. He's an exploit. I leave it at that because the man is dead. And to me, all this criminal background that people are bringing up about George Floyd is irrelevant to the moment that he met his death. All this stuff that people are bringing up, the police weren't there because he had a gun to a pregnant woman's belly. They weren't there for that. That's irrelevant. So by bringing that up, basically you in your soul, maybe you don't feel this way, but deep down you're saying that he did all these bad things, so he deserved to have his fate. That's basically what I'm getting, because you guys are like, well, we're only painting out his criminal background because these people want to paint him as a martyr. Well, you can rebut them painting him as a martyr without vilifying a man that is not here anymore. That's just my opinion. Some of these conservatives are no different than gangbangers who diss on the dead for justified reasons. I'm only dissing the dead and talking about how terrible dead people are because these people are trying to make him seem like he's a hero, and we just want to convince everybody that this criminal was not a hero and that, he died because he was a criminal and he did bad things. But it's like, bruh, none of the things that George Floyd did in his past had anything to do with that moment that he died. So what are you talking about and what are you trying to prove? Because to me, in essence, I'm hearing a lot of y'all say in so many different words, just another dead nigga, and we should not feel bad about him. He's not a martyr. He's not a beacon. Some of y'all sounding really cross. And then this one guy was like, well, you can't use God, because God is like, look, y'all can feel like y'all can judge people until the cows come home. There's a lot of high and mighty, self-righteous conservatives who think that they can just judge people all day long. And what really befuddles me about how some conservatives talk about George Floyd is they basically taking sound bites from Candace Owens. And these are grown-ass men, and I'm thinking to myself, that girl is all of 31. So y'all listening to a passionately ignorant Republican millennial feed you guys into ignorant rhetoric. And if you step back from how they talk shit about a dead man, it's like y'all know better than the liberals. Y'all really not. And that's the realization I had to come to learning about conservatism in this last year. There's wacky, ignorant people on both sides, and trust and believe when you talk about all conservatives being critical thinkers, they are not. When you think about all conservatives being objective, they are not. And I'd like to introduce, I don't know if this is a real term or not, but my friend and I, we were talking about it. And I said, I am a person that has rational empathy. What is rational empathy to me? Rational empathy is being able to objectively assess a situation mic, because they love playing with me. They just, when I start talking that real, they love to cut me off. But rational empathy is when you can take, in my opinion, the necessary empathetic points of a situation and be able to create your own rational conclusions about it. So with George, I thought that that was a calculated hate crime. It was unfortunate that that man met his demise in that manner. And I am not going to act like I know everything to be able to talk on it. But at the same time, the man did end up dying in that situation. So what do I do with that? Okay, unfortunate that the man had to die like that, because no matter if he was strung out on drugs, acting a fool anywhere, he didn't deserve to die. He didn't deserve to die in that moment. It amazes me how drug abuse, especially opioid drug abuse, was seen as a disease until George Floyd. Then it became a criminal activity. And here's the thing, I don't understand, with George Floyd, he supposedly had fentanyl in his system. DMX supposedly had fentanyl in his system. And I'm like sitting up there like, we have a fentanyl problem in this country big time. And to me, if we got whole, people like DMX, and I think what's my guy name from go underground, Styles P, Humpty, like supposedly he had fentanyl in his system. So it's like, we definitely have a drug problem, especially in the poverty line Black community. You know what I mean? And when I think about people like George Floyd and some of the decisions that he made, he did not make any different type of decision that people in the poverty line Black, or even, I wouldn't even want to say Black, because it's not just confined to Black people, but poverty line individuals are a different psychology. They will do things that are unfathomable to most civilized individuals. You know what I mean? And that does not give them a pass because they lived in poverty and they have this psychological condition. But what it should help us to do is look at that segment of America and understand that their behaviors and focus on how to help them. I think when you look at each segment of America, you have a fading middle class. That means that we need more job security in this country. on a poverty line, we need more. That's where you need the mental health experts. That's where you need individuals with opportunities to be able to see beyond the realities that they're living in. And like I said, there's no excuse for the life choices that George Floyd chose to make in his life. But none of those choices resulted in the moment that he saw that he was facing that met his death. Therefore, I find that people who want to rebut the liberals making him a martyr by vilifying the man, I think that some of y'all need to get back into your Bible and understand, sometimes you don't even have to put your mouth on anything. Sometimes you can just leave the judgment of somebody that is dead to God. Because Romans 6:23 say the wages that sin pays is death. And we are all sinners. So when we die, death pays our sins. But what does the rest of that verse say? It said, but the gift that God gives is everlasting life through Christ Jesus our Lord. And even DMX, right before he died, he said it. The dead are in a better condition than the living because they are not dealing with the trying times that we are living in right now. There's no more test to their faith. There's no more pain, mourning, outcry. The former things for them, when they wake up, they're going to be in a totally different condition when we have that resurrection. Because the Bible talks about a resurrection, and it's going to be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous. And that memorial tomb, not even Jesus know whose name is in the memorial tomb. So how dare you people continuously disrespect the dead as if you're more righteous than they are? Some of you guys don't even realize that some of you self-righteous people, George Floyd is in a better condition than you are spiritually because he's met his penance with death. And that's what some of you judgmental ass people don't realize. The wages that sin pays is death. Death. And the Bible is clear that people who know God and turn their back on him, these are the people who are going to reach the final destruction. I mean, there's a lot of people who never had a relationship with God. I don't even know what George Floyd's faith was, but there are a lot of people that did not get to know God. They did not get to know his righteous standards. But there's a lot of people with their mouths on a man like that who do know God and his righteous standards, and they ain't living right. They not thinking right, and they got their mouths on things they should not have it on in the context that they really should not be on board with. So trust and believe. You can judge George Floyd all you want to. And I'm not saying the man was a good man by any stretch of the imagination, and I will say it again. He is not a martyr. He is not a beacon for black people to symbolize. But at the same damn time, the man is dead and he cannot speak for his choices, whether he was living and even after death. There's no more choices after death because the Psalms is very clear. The living are conscious that they will die. But as for the dead, they are conscious of nothing at all. Let's see, what we're talking about. I can't defend George Floyd's criminal history. Nobody needs to defend it. His criminal history is what it is. However, how often is that a police officer killed the actual killer? Here's the thing. There's no when it comes to George Floyd's character and who he was, there's nothing to defend. He was who he was, and he was not what some people would consider a model person in society. But that doesn't negate the fact that he still meant something to somebody. That still doesn't negate the fact that he still had family that looked at him when he was living a lot differently than a lot of people who didn't know him are looking at him. And for that, it is not my business to judge a dead man. It's not even my business to judge a living man. You know what I mean? Because I already know the final judge of all of us, we can't even see. Okay, but you're not God, Shadow X. So what are you talking about? Like, you need an excuse to judge another human being. And what I'm saying is that that's not your place. I don't care how many black conservatives or mainstream money peddling people want to tell you that it's your place to judge. You don't write the memorial tomb. That is up to God above. And that's what you need to get. You're not above reproach, my man. Finally, here in Baltimore this week, an actual murderer was killed by police while running from a warrant. He shot at police officers and they killed the guy. The black community has zero complaints. I mean, what can you do? I mean, he put himself in a situation. I mean, here's the thing. You know, do we all make decisions, right? And we all have to deal with the recourses of those decisions, right? That's part of the human experience. You know, you shoot at the police, you know what the consequences are going to be for that. You know what I mean? What's up, Victory Girl? We're just talking about George Floyd because I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, we just need to look at his criminal history and talk about his criminal history so that we can justify why we reject the fact that the liberals want to make him into a martyr. And it's like, we get it. George Floyd, he was not a hero. But I think the biggest thing to me with the conversations with the liberals is you guys are exploiting black lynchings once again to inflame black people. You know what I mean? And now you're creating these symbols and beacons of struggles for black people. That's the conversation with George Floyd to me. It's not like George Floyd was a criminal. He put a gun to a pregnant woman and he was not a beacon or whatever. Because it's like, to me, when you bring the conversation that way, you're basically saying George Floyd deserved to die. You know, we shouldn't be immortalizing him. We should be vilifying him for the bad person and the bad choices that he made, even though those bad choices that he made had nothing to do with the reason why he ultimately had to die. And, you know, I mean, here's the thing. When you start talking about somebody's criminal background to, you know, to refute why somebody is you know, glorifying them, I mean, I just feel like you taking your conversation, it's like, no, he shouldn't be glorified. He was a criminal. But again, his criminal background had nothing to do with the moment that he died. The man was on drugs. Apparently, he was erratic. He didn't have a gun to a pregnant woman's belly. Apparently, he was able to get past that case. He didn't do. He wasn't. The cops were not there for anything that man did in his past. You know what I mean? He just wasn't. And I mean, this is just like, to me, one side of people continuously dissing the dead. You know what I mean? And I'm just encouraging people to do some soul searching. You know what I mean? For me, I don't care about George Floyd's background or any of that stuff because the man is dead. He's dead. He's dead. He's dead. It's not valuable for me anytime George Floyd's name come up to talk about what a horrible criminal that he was. He's dead. That is not valuable. Now, if you want to just get on the fact that you're tired of these liberals exploiting black people, using public lynchings to inflame them and get into their emotions and force feed these ideas so that they can make political decisions that don't benefit them ultimately, then sure, use that. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, you know, Malice Green, Rodney King, come on, y'all. Those weren't like just upstanding people in society. Come on. They weren't upstanding people in society. But at the end of the day, did they deserve the things that happened to them? Maybe some people would feel like it was justified, you know what I mean, in what happened to them because of the choices that they made with other people. But at the end of the day, I feel like vengeance belongs to the Lord. It really does belong to the Lord. And if we just had to kill people based off of terrible things that they did, because I do believe in capital punishment, I do believe in eye for eye. If you kill somebody, I feel like you should definitely die yourself. But I didn't see any murder in George Floyd's background. So that's just my opinion. Y'all can take it how you want to. I'm just kind of tired of some of these passionately ignorant people on both the liberal and conservative side creating content and scenarios around a dead man. It's just stop it already. The man is gone. His family, his children are the only ones left. So, I mean, what y'all, some of y'all people talking about, it just don't make any sense to me. And y'all talking about, oh, we conservative, bring God back into the union and stuff. And it's like, y'all judgmental as hell. Y'all judgmental as hell. Sometimes it's best to just keep your mouth shut. Sometimes it's best to just keep your mouth shut, before you start casting judgment on somebody else. Keep your mouth shut. Just keep your mouth shut. And that's all I got on George Floyd and Dissing the Dead. I'm going to keep talking about this because Dissing the Dead is definitely a trend. It's definitely a trend. And I want to remind people, whether you are a conservative or liberal or whatever, God don't like that. And if you claim to be a Christian, God don't like that. So I feel like if you cannot intelligently speak about George Floyd without vilifying the man as a dead man and bringing up all kinds of irrelevant things about his past that had nothing to do with his death, just keep your mouth shut about him. It's my time to roll out because they cut me off about this man. They are cutting me off about George Floyd. They don't want me talking about him. They don't want me talking about George Floyd, but I just wanted to put that in people's ear. I'm gonna pull Dr. Boyce Watkins right now and just use the audio, because I'm not keep playing with this video. It's like this site either gives me one or the other. Speaking of Dr. Boyce Watkins, here's my thing. Why is he asking people about their vaccination status? I am about really, really tired of people who are not the doctor asking about vaccination status. I mean, and I don't want to be rude because somebody asks me that, are you vaccinated? I'm like, I don't disclose that. That's none of your business. It's like, since when is HIPAA still existed? Did the Democrats get rid of HIPAA? Let me see if this camera still works. But did the Democrats get rid of HIPAA? Because I don't understand divulging vaccination information. I don't get that at all. Is it gonna work? Nope. But anyways, y'all. Judgmental. Streamyard is gonna have to give me my money back. They're gonna have to give me my money back for sure. But think about this conversation. Like I said, is the conversation about George Floyd every time you hear a Democrat put up a mural, is it worth vilifying the dead man, or should you be attacking the group of people who keep trying to create and push narratives about this man? I mean, I think that would be a much more productive conversation than vilifying George Floyd. And see, you just made a great point. If passion was taken out of a lot of these conversations, it can be better. Absolutely. A lot of people don't realize how emotionally charged they are when they engage in conversations. And I was actually, talking to, I actually get at men on LinkedIn, and I'm pulling Kwame Brown on them. Like, you didn't enter this conversation like a man. Next time, enter this conversation like a man. And the first thing they want to say is, you're emasculating me. And I'm like, bro, you can emasculate a man that has not been properly emasculated. And I am strong on that. Some of these grown ass men are entering conversations like little boys, and they're expecting the respect of a man when they give out their boyish little opinions and feelings. And it's like, we don't play that over here. I don't play that over here. Nobody that deal with play that over here. You gonna be grown today. And I think that's, like I said, the purpose of my content and my
my channel is to bring people back to respectful public discourse. We need to learn how to be able to take in an opinion, one that either we agree with or even that we don't agree with, and we need to be able to at least be objective with one another, in terms of what are my thoughts on this? What are your
thoughts on this? Man, they done kicked me out of the microphone and everything. I didn't realize that. I can't stand Streamyard. I've never used an app that defaults me back to my computer settings. Like, trying to get off my line. Marshall, I'm loving her channel. We have to pray. I'm really just trying to get a message out that I think a lot of people are talking about it. And I'm just putting my voice on there, my spin and my perspective on these discussions so that people can think more deeply about them. I feel like this is a spiritual warfare. And even when you think that, there's a good side and a bad side, when it comes to, some of the party ideologies of some of these people, it's best to be neutral and look at things from, a very, I would say educated eye, but also you have to be able to step back and do your own research before you bandwagon just think about anything. Because at the end of the day, I'm trying to save my own soul, so I'm not trying to have these passionately ignorant arguments take me out of element with my Lord. So, and that's all it is. It's like, let's just stop disrespecting the dead. If you got a beef with the Democrats for trying to make George Floyd a martyr, you need to keep that on them. They're the ones doing that. That man is dead. He's dead. He's dead. I don't even see George Floyd's family being super duper vocal about that situation like the Democrats and all the propaganders and exploiters are. So if you're going to talk about the George Floyd situation, talk about them. Talk about them. Because they're the one who is exploiting his narrative. They're the one who's trying to make his life something that it wasn't so that black people can be addicted to struggle. So that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. That's fine. If you want to unsubscribe because you want to take the notion that it's okay to vilify a dead man for criminal activities that wasn't even the reason why he died or got caught up in a situation that he did die, you go ahead and do that. But I do question some of you so-called Christians, even the ones that buy into the symbolism of George Floyd being this beacon and this martyr. I'm talking to y'all Christians too, because y'all sitting up there taking pictures next to statues and murals of an imperfect human. George Floyd was not Jesus. All right? I'm not going to vilify his background, but he's definitely not a beacon for black people to be revering. And that is word 100. At all they agree in their sentiment, I'm saying at all they agree to their sentiment, they say though that the trial took their pain and went back to life peacefully. I'm telling you, George Floyd's family got that money and they dipped the hell out. And this is how I knew that George Floyd was a big ass exploit, because he got more money than Trayvon Martin. Any of these hate crimes that we've seen in the last, 10 years, he got more money, $27 million. $27 million. To me, you give me that money, I don't got shit else to say about that too. We healing. Y'all can paint whatever picture y'all want to, now that we paid. Referred to Nipsey Hussle as Christ. But that's the thing. Nipsey Hussle, he was, to me, when you look at Nipsey Hussle, that was a reformed man leveraging his skills, capabilities, and he was trying to give back and build it within his community. That is what Nipsey did, and unfortunately, they killed him. But the thing is, Nipsey Hussle was just a good man, a reformed man, a great example to black brothers on how, to change your life and change the trajectory of, things, decisions that you make in order for you to be fruitful. And, I found Nipsey to be very positive because Nipsey did not glorify shit. He didn't, and it's a shame that motherfuckers blow up after they die. Ain't that always the story? They always blow up after they die. Oh no, hon, don't forget the GoFundMe page and all the celebrities who gave. Yeah, but when it comes to celebrity deaths and all that stuff, I never know what to think about some of that stuff anymore. I never know what to think about that stuff anymore. Latoya Jackson made a very ominous remark when Michael Jackson died. She said when she heard that Michael Jackson died, her own brother, she said, "I know this sounds weird, but the first thing I wanted to know was who was next." You know what I mean? And because she mentioned the fact that they die in threes. So she was like, she was wondering who was next after Michael. And I think Farrah Fawcett died during that time. Like when Michael Jackson died, it was a trio. And I'm trying to think about that third one that died after Michael Jackson and Farrah Fawcett. But it was a trio within those months. I can remember. Yep, I try to be a straight shooter about these conversations, but I want people to, especially people who profess to be Christians, we really got to get out of the alley of judging people, because unless your name is written in the Lord's memorial tomb, you are not in a position to judge anybody. Unless you know for sure that God wrote your name in the book of life. If you know your name is in the book of life, if God told you himself, because even Jesus don't know. He don't know whose name is in the book of life. The angels in the heavens don't know until that book is open and the war on this earth starts and people start dying unexpectedly because they got silent killers whacking them off. See, people think Armageddon is a lie. And that's where a lot of people are just so blinded right now. It's like this world is not getting worse just because. This shit was the revelation is very clear about the times that we're going to be living in and the mental disposition of men. And let me tell you, when I hear how men talk about other men, how they kill other men, how they disrespect the dead, trust and believe, like, shoot, I already know what time we up in. We in the last days, critical time, hard to deal with, will be here. Men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, haughty, blasphemous, self-assuming, puffed up with pride, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godly devotion but proving false to its power. That's what some of you judgmental ass conservatives are right now. You have a form of godly devotion, but by your rhetoric and the bandwagon rhetoric that you would jump on, some of it is straight up demonic because y'all dissing the dead. You have a form of godly devotion, but you are proving false to its power. So, that is my 2 cents about George Floyd. He's not a martyr. He is not a beacon for civil rights. He's not a symbol for Black people to even look up to as civil rights, up to in respects to civil rights. But what he's not right now is a living man. So for anybody who want to continue to send me criminal records of George Floyd and his background, I would love to understand what your purpose is. What are you trying to convince me to think about a dead man? And that's all I got for you guys. You have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, everyone who have tuned in. Please, if you have faith, you believe in God, pray for humility. Pray for humility. Pray for the right eyes and the perspective. So as you take in these arguments, you can be spiritually objective. And as I mentioned before, rationally empathetic when it comes to these arguments, so that you're not taking on the satanic viewpoint without you even knowing it. So have a good day, everyone. Enjoy your evening, and I will catch you tomorrow. If you have a topic that you want me to discuss, send me a note if you're a follower on LinkedIn. Bye.